Good morning, Samantha.
Good morning, Tom. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to be talking to you. These days, seeing anyone in person, even if it's over Zoom, is kind of a treat. So thank you for that.
Thank you for giving me a reason to put on lipstick.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, we've done some work together in the past, and we've collaborated a little bit on your blog, writing some articles. But I'm kind of curious about learning a little bit more about what you do and how you got into it. So maybe you could just give us a little bit of background about yourself to get started. And then
Sure.
we'll talk more about your site and your new business.
Sure, absolutely. So, yeah, about 7 or 8 years ago, I started to get really ill. I was having lots of digestive issues. I was having heavy hemorrhaging, skin rashes. I had hot bumps on my tongue. I had all these different issues, and I was going back and forth between a couple of my doctors, and no one seemed to really have an answer. They all kind of disagreed with each other, actually. And one of my doctors actually told me that I was just going to have to live with it. And I was not really all that comfortable with that. So I started, and of course, like when you start Googling, oh, I have this symptom, like, oh, I have all these bumps on my tongue. What does that mean? Well, of course, when you start Googling things, it means, you have some horrible disease and you have, 3 days to live.
Yeah.
But I have to stop. I have to stop doing this. It's making my anxiety worse. It's making my symptoms worse. So I started to make a journal of my symptoms, and I was writing things down, and I started to notice that they were happening in a cycle, like a 30-day cycle. And I mentioned this to my doctor, and I had actually found an article from Johns Hopkins University on PMDD and perimenopause. And they listed 100 symptoms, and I had 99. The one symptom I did not have was weight gain, because I was unable to absorb any sort of nutrients, and I was very anemic as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent him the article, and he called me, and he's like, Samantha, this is amazing. This is exactly you. And I was like, yeah, I know. So I had been through all sorts of, testing, and they ruled out, any kind of, underlying condition. And I had none. I had nothing. Everything came back perfect. And it was more frustrating at that point than anything, because I wanted them to find something. I wanted them to say, here, okay, you have this, take this, and you'll be better. And there was no one pill or one anything that was going to make me better. So when I showed him this, the document, the article, he was really excited, actually. So I was like, no more tests, we're going to treat the root cause of my issues, which was my hormonal imbalance and a little bit of emotional, psychological stress and, drama, because I'd been so sick for so long that I was just kind of at my wit's end. So we did that, and I changed around my diet, I changed around my lifestyle, I managed my stress better, and really changing my diet was the biggest thing. And, he suggested some medications that I took, and he suggested some medications that I didn't take. So it was kind of a little bit of like yin and yang, a little science, a little nature. And now I'm off of, the majority of my medications. There are some that I will stay on, because I do believe in science.
Yeah.
And now I balance everything through my diet and through exercise and breathing and meditating. So that's why I wanted to help other people. I said to my doctor, did you know that this could be like a thing, that all these symptoms could be caused by, psychological, hormonal, emotional factors? And he's like, yeah, of course I did. And I was like, why didn't you tell me? He said, well, most patients don't really take well to that. They're a little bit by that, because they think, oh, you're telling me I'm crazy. And
Sure.
I was like, what? At that point, if you told me I was crazy, I would have been like, thank you very much, because it would have saved time and money and energy and, time away from my family. For 2 years, I was, basically incapacitated. I was calling out of work. I was lying on the bathroom floor all the time. So yeah, if I could have gotten this back, that would have been huge. So that's why I decided I wanted to help other people. I don't want anyone to suffer the way that I did.
Now, it sounds like you did a lot of research, to get to the point that you got to. What advice would you give to people who, are where you are years ago, who might be going through a lot of trial and error? as they're trying to investigate their symptoms.
Yeah, stay away from like WebMD.
Okay.
Because, everyone who Googles anything on WebMD is going to die. Look for legitimate sources, Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, New York Presbyterian.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them now have really great, easy, user-friendly, resource guides. You can go in the search bar and like type in your symptoms, and they will come up with, causes and, like what do you want to say? A layman's description. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like article written for doctors.
Mm-hmm.
People can understand, and then take that information back to your doctor. Say, hey, I found this. What do you think about this? And go back to the doctor. My doctor would always say, like, oh yeah, okay, try this. I'll see you in 6 weeks. And like 3 days later, be right back to where I started, or having a reaction to medication. And I didn't wait 6 weeks. I called up and I was like, no, I need to come in now. Like, something's wrong. So I was very persistent, and at some point, I think annoying to my doctor. I remember walking into his office one day. He opened the door and he saw who it was, and he literally rolled his eyes. But I'm like, I don't care. I'm not leaving here until we figure this out. I'll pay my $60 copay twice a week if I have to. So, don't. It can get costly, but don't be afraid to go back or call or tell them something's wrong.
It sounds like people in your shoes kind of have to not lose their inhibitions about maybe getting on people's nerves.
Right, absolutely. And I understand it's hard financially. When my copay went to $60, I wasn't quite so, I wasn't running to the doctor as often, but luckily I was feeling a lot better, and I was able to. And every now and then I have a flare up, and I think, okay, like, what is happening? And I just have to sit and think for a few minutes, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I know what's happening. I need to do this, and I do it, and then I feel fine. So you have to that point where you trust yourself, and you believe this, and having people in your network that are going through the same thing. I was lucky that I had 2 very close friends that had been through what I'd been through, and just talking with them in a positive way was very helpful and comforting to me. Like, okay, so it's not me, I'm not alone.
Now, was their diagnosis the same as yours in the end?
No, it was very different.
Okay.
Chronic digestive disorders kind of they all kind of have the same symptoms, and they all stem from the same place. Even like things like Crohn's disease and colitis and real medical diagnosis. They do come from poor diet. They come from stress. They come from emotional issues, psychological issues. So even things that do have a straight up diagnosis, in a lot of cases, can be reversed with diet and lifestyle changes.
I just want to back up to something you were saying earlier, just so there's no misunderstandings, with anyone watching this. Say that if you go to WebMD, you're going to die. Just to be clear, that means that I think what you're saying here is that people who go there might be tempted to just kind of see the worst case scenario for their symptoms, rather than seeing a more impartial, factual sort of explanation that you would get from Johns Hopkins or someone like that.
Right. I think, WebMD is kind of like, I guess like the McDonald's of the medical world in terms of, information. So they tell you, and legally they kind of have to tell you, it's just like when you get a prescription, side effects may include X, Y, Z, and they have to say you might die, because legally they do, because, even if like only, one person, if it only happened to one person out of a million, they still have to put that down. So
sure.
And they give you like mild to severe cases, and when people are kind of nervous about their health and their their stress and they're anxious, they are going to go to that extreme point, because I think it's once they see that, you open the page and you scroll and scroll and scroll and read, and then it gets worse and worse and worse, and you get more panicky. Keep on scrolling and keep on scrolling, and then you find a condition highlighted in blue, and then you click on that, and then it's kind of like you're going down the rabbit hole.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. You hear my dog barking? Isn't
We
that fun?
do, we do, and that actually brings me to my next question. Oddly enough, you know,
Let him in the house.
you
Let me
shared a
just
story. I'm sorry, say it
what?
again.
I'm gonna let the dog in the house so
Okay,
that
sure.
we can have a little bit of quiet. All right.
Okay, I'm going
Here
to
I
pause.
Yep.
Okay, so you know, the dog reminded me of something I want to ask. You sent over some of your background, and you told a story about that involved filet mignon, and I kind of want to get into that because it's sort of like the origin story, I guess, for your you know your interest in health in a way. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. When I was young, I guess I was in middle school, about this younger than my son is now. He's
Hmm.
14, so
Wow.
8 or 9. I know, time flies, right?
Hmm.
So I was very picky about meat. You know, I didn't like anything with fat on it. I was always picking at my food. When we would go to restaurants, like I'd be holding the meat up to like the candle to make sure there was like no fat on it. And one night, so my mother would buy very expensive meat for us to eat. So she'd cooked a filet mignon for
Hmm.
dinner, and we had a little white dog at one point. I think it was a Maltese, and of course, he's a dog and dogs beg. So
Hmm.
I was secretly like, I would cut up a piece of meat and like hold it on my fork, and then I'd be taking it off my plate and like feeding it to the
Uh-huh.
dog. And at one point, my mother turned around and caught me, and she said, "Did you feed that to the dog?" I was like, and of course, the dog's like licking his chops, like happy with anything, so I couldn't really lie about it. I was like, "Yeah, I did. I didn't really want to eat it." She's like, "I'm not going to make that for you anymore." I was like, "Oh, thank God," because I don't want to eat it anymore.
Hmm.
So that's kind of started on the vegetarian path.
Hmm.
But like I said, gluten and artificial ingredients, like nobody was really
Oh.
yeah, my phone rang. Nobody was really talking about it back then. So I ate a lot of leaves, I ate a lot of Weight Watchers,
Hmm.
ziti marinara, and my mother would buy vegetarian baked beans in a can, and
Hmm.
microwave some vegetables and the beans. And so I was getting enough protein, but I was also getting a lot of artificial junk. But
Sure.
I was eating better than most of my peers, because
Hmm.
I wasn't going to McDonald's or Burger King or anything like that. So that, I think, kind of started my journey. And then as I got into dancing and
Hmm.
teaching, it was even more interesting to me. I would tell my
Hmm.
dancers, if you're gonna perform a long weekend, you need to make sure that you have gas in the car. You need to
Hmm.
fuel your body with healthy things. Don't drink soda, don't eat chips, those
Hmm.
basic kinds of things. Eat more vegetables and protein and complex carbohydrates to give you the energy, which is just a pretty, it's kind of like nutrition 101. But
Hmm.
really, and it was frustrating to me when I saw my students doing things like that, like drinking a Coke in like the waiting room of you know the dance studio. I'm like,
Hmm.
you have a ballet this weekend,
Yeah.
why are you drinking that? But of course I wasn't their mother, and I wasn't really qualified to say those kinds of things. But
Hmm.
I think that's where it kind of started, like just a little tiny bit, like a little glimmer.
Now, you know, that's something that always interests me about people when they change careers is how what they did before kind of prepare them for what they're doing now. So, in your case, how would you say the world of dance and the world of teaching has kind of set you up for what you're doing now?
Well, it's so funny because this is technically my third career.
Hmm.
So uh, yeah, I finally know what I want to be when I grow up. So, and it's crazy because it's totally true what they say is, life puts you on the path that you're meant to be. So
Hmm.
my teaching career definitely gave me the confidence, to speak in front of people,
Hmm.
I definitely don't have, I don't have stage fright. I
Hmm.
perform, I can articulate myself because I did it for years and years, teaching and having meetings with parents. I was the director of a ballet school and a ballet company. So, I was very much kind of like in the spotlight, I guess.
Hmm.
So a lot of coaches that I've been working with, and that I'm in a Facebook group with my class, that I noticed that they're not very confident. They're afraid to, go live on Facebook or, do a live event, which no one can do now anyway. But I definitely don't have that fear because, I did gain confidence, from 20 some years, of teaching, and also knowing the body. Like, the more you're in front of people watching their bodies move, and I watched my students grow and progress and recover from injuries. I think that just kind of gave me, an innate sense of, of the body and how it works, in a variety of different circumstances, watching different children grow up and get married, and now they're having children. It's frightening. And then my career, because when I actually retired from teaching when my son was 5, because his kindergarten bus came at like 8:15 in the morning, and he'd be in bed when I got home, and I'd literally wake him up, put him on the bus, and then I wouldn't see him again until 9 o'clock at night. So I'm like, gone all weekend, for ballets and performing and competitions. So I'm like, okay, something has to give here. So I had been working as a telesales recruiter for as like a second job, like a backup job in case I broke my leg. And so that was kind of like progressing as like a real job. So it started off as like 8 hours a week, and then when the company downsized, I was up to like 25 hours a week, and I was ridiculously successful, making more money than I had ever seen in my life. I was really making full-time salary for part-time job. So that was really great for my family, but it did feel sort of icky, because although I was offering, I had a good relationship with my clients, and I was offering them, a valuable service, there was a little bit of smoke and mirrors that kind of went with it that I wasn't directly involved in, but I knew about it. So I didn't feel 100% great about what I was doing, but I did enjoy having those relationships, with my clients. And I knew that it was and that definitely has set me up for, building relationships with my, with my clients now. But, I have a lot more control now over, over what happens in the process. I'm not, kind of, I'm not at the entry level now. Like, I'm like, it's me, it's all me all the time.
So I want to get back to a little more specifics about what you do, and I'm putting myself in the position of someone who's maybe comes to you as a client. I think one of the first things I'd want to know is how much of my diet is going to have to change as we go on this journey together.
Well, I mean, not knowing anything about what you eat, I can say that that's really all up to you. And the thing I like about integrative nutrition coaching is it's very bio-individual. Now, something that works for you. So, what we would do is we would discuss your goals, short term, long term. If I could wave a magic wand right now, what would be the thing you would want to change in your life? And then we would go through them, a few at a time, and depending on it's all based on your goals. If you eat potato chips, don't want to give up potato chips, I'm not going to tell you to give up potato chips. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk a lot about what's off the plate. We're going to talk a lot about your relationship, your work life, your spiritual life, your joy, your finances, what area in your life is the most out of balance. And then that's where we're going to start, because it's kind of that whole idea of heal the roots of the tree before you heal the leaf. And, our bodies are incredibly smart. They know how to heal themselves by themselves. So if you're absolutely not willing to change your diet, once we get into the 6 month, we start to do some of these things and you start to talk out loud, you come to your own conclusions. I don't hand you a meal plan. I don't tell you, oh, eat this, I'm going to ask you some questions and get you thinking. And then you're going to come to those conclusions like, oh, I get it now. I need to do this. And then throughout the 6 months, you'll have faced pretty much every challenge that, anyone can face in a lifetime. And you'll have all the tools that you need to really, stay on track.
Okay. Besides, I guess that's kind of a misconception I might have had going into this. What are some other things that maybe people have about what you do or what they'll need to do once they've begun working with you?
Yeah, here's a really good one. My family pretty much thinks I'm an adult. That sauteing kale and throwing some sunflower seeds on it, and they're like, oh, they roll their eyes. So I think a lot of people think that it's a cult or it's a fad or it's not legitimate. It's not based on science. It's like throw chicken bones on the floor and dance around. But it actually studying now for 6-7 months, this behind it, you know, and all these theories are backed by, you know, double-blind trials and stuff. You know, of course, like everyone has their own spin on things. So depending on who you talk to, you know, one lecturer I listened to, you know, said, you know, don't eat grains, don't eat any grains, grains are terrible. And then another lecturer I listened to said, don't eat meat, eat grains. You know,
Yeah.
so there is a lot of controversial information out there, but, you know, that's why the whole idea of bioindividuality is that you kind of, you know, you kind of balance it for yourself. Try a lot of the different things, and then you know, once you kind of crowd out a lot of the bad stuff, you know, you come to a place where you just don't want that anymore, and you can bring in a lot of different things, and then your body's kind of like just wide awake, you know, and it's, when you try something, you really feel the difference, because you don't have like, you're not kind of like blocked, you know. When we get all these artificial ingredients, and when we're storing fat in our cells, they're not functioning properly, and, you know, our insulin levels are out of control, and heart disease and high blood pressure, high cholesterol. But when you kind of get that all, you know, under control, then your body's so awake and so, like, you know, ready for whatever you feed it, and you just feel so happy and healthy, and you're glowing from the, you know, like beauty from the inside out. And hoping that I'm, you know, that I'm walking my talk, but you know, I think a lot of people have a misconception that, you know, it's just, you know, it's a bunch of BS.
Sure. So I guess that leads me to another question. You know, you have to basically, you know, sell this to people who are just lay people. But what about when you're dealing with medical professionals? How do you approach them without basically telling them I know more than you, or making it seem like you do, or you're, you know, kind of, you know, questioning what they do? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I come from it with the approach that, you know, what I do can, you know, we can kind of work together. Like, you know, it's very parallel. You know, that doctors obviously don't have time to, you know, ask their patients about, you know, their lifestyle, about their diet, you know, about, you know, they really can't get to the root cause. You know, specialists are reason, you know, they one specific issue, whether it's diabetes, you know, cholesterol, you know, gastroenterologists, you know, women's issues. So they're very, like, it's very finite what they do and what they know. So having someone on their team that can sit down for 50 minutes with one of their patients and ask them all these high mileage questions, you know, while working with their doctor. You know, let's say you have high cholesterol and your doctor puts you on cholesterol medication, and then, you know, you come and you speak with a health coach, and they sort of lean you more into the direction of, you know, a healthier diet and lifestyle. You're still going to be seeing your doctor because you need to follow up, obviously. So they're not losing any business. But now, because you're feeling so much better, you know, of course you're going to tell the doctor, I feel amazing, you know. Maybe they might lower your medication, but you're going to go out and tell all your friends, like, I have the greatest doctor in the world, you know, he lowered my cholesterol. So I think that, you know, it's going to give them more business, because the medical profession is a business. You know, I'm not trying to take anything away from them. I'm just trying to complement what they do, and, you know, increase their patient satisfaction, and, you know, it will actually grow their practice, because, you know, word of mouth is actually the best form of advertising. I'm sure you know.
Sure. Is there anything else you would like to add that we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I actually have for all of you guys today, I have a free 5-day guide to better gut balance. It's actually on my website. It's a free guide. It has lists of some do's and don'ts and some meal plans for you. Just not a plan, but a list of things. You know, eat this for breakfast, eat this for lunch, eat this for dinner. Here's some snacks. Really helpful to, you know, rebuild that gut wall. I know we didn't really talk about leaky gut very much, but, you know, most issues in the body are as a result of leaky gut. You're basically have, like, they're almost like bouncers at a nightclub. You know, it's like wall. It's supposed to be, you know, any of the artificial ingredients or free radicals or GMOs or all the stuff that's not supposed to get into your digestive system is supposed to get bounced out. But when you constantly attack that wall, it actually starts to weaken, and then some of the things get in, and that's what they call leaky gut. But
Sure.
actually, it's not. It's really, just it's digestive imbalance, and which causes, lowers your immune system. It causes heart disease, causes diabetes, it causes everything across the whole gamut. So it's a 5-day guide, strengthen your gut wall, digestive balance, however you want to call it. It's on my website, Your Best Life by Samantha.com.
Okay.
Roll down to the bottom, click get it now, and I'll send it right over.
Okay. All right. Well, Samantha, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.